Week 18 is always wacky in the NFL DFS here in week 18. We are here on the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast to navigate you through it all. Coming up next. Happy Friday morning, everybody. Welcome to the last week of the regular season, week 18. We are the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, the DFS Friday version. I am Scott Jenstad, joined always on Friday mornings by Ryan Belongia. We appreciate everybody listening all year. We appreciate No House Advantage for sponsoring the podcast all year. That is, it's been a fantastic little partnership there, too. Ryan, it's week 18. Week 18 is always a little bit weird. This one is especially weird. We've got teams with teams motivation, teams without motivation. We have no games that have a Vegas total over 43 on the slate, which is almost impossible to think about. We had some low totals here, but nothing quite like that. But first of all, got to give you props for last week. I don't like to pat ourselves in the back too much, but I loved Mike Evans. He went crazy. I liked Amari Cooper. He went off. You loved Green Bay from a betting angle, a money line angle, a Green Bay defense angle, and they came through in a large way in all those aspects. That was a great call.
Yeah, thanks. And great call on Evans. We had a lot of nice calls on the podcast last week. Green Bay, that was especially nice, especially as a Packer fan.
And it was never in doubt. Like that game was
never
over.
In doubt. I mean, I think I mentioned on the podcast that the game might be over at halftime.
Yep.
The only thing, I had some nice bets on the Packers that came through. I almost pulled the trigger on an adjusted spread Packers bet. I was going to tease them up to -10, but I didn't end up pulling the trigger. I figured I had enough riding. But yeah, this week's interesting. I don't think we've ever seen a week with so many low totals, almost no games that you really want to stack. You mentioned motivation. I think that's the first thing you got to consider for this slate, figuring out which teams to target and which ones to avoid. There's a bunch of teams resting players, a lot of backup quarterbacks in, not a lot of spend up options across the board.
Yeah, it's interesting one, but I suppose that's what we're here for. There's still lots of contests, lots of prizes, and finding the right plays in this week is more difficult than usual. Usually it was like, oh, well, this is an easy stack, this will make sense, but we're gonna have to dig in a little bit, which is a fun thing, but also can be a frustrating thing, especially week 18. You always get there's gonna be some random guys that go off. It's just gonna happen. It's hard to know that, but that always happens. There's the famous Patrick Jeffers, like 3-game stretch at the end of the year many years ago. But there's always some no names that come through. But week 18 is unlike any other resting players. That more than resting, there's like guys leaving early. If the game is have a 2-touchdown game in the third quarter, guys are going to come out of the game. Whereas NFL teams just don't do that in week 8, week 9. I usually yell at the screen, take a quarterback out. There's 8 minutes left. You're up 21, but teams really don't do it very often. Maybe the last drive, but this is a week that there's a lot of teams that will do just exactly that. So on the Sunday slate, we have 13 games, 8 early, 5 late, a big, huge slate of games for everybody to enjoy on Sunday. Saturday games are off our slate. The Chiefs and the Raiders. The big Tennessee-Jacksonville game on Saturday night. And then Sunday night is off the slate. That's Green Bay, your Packers, against the Lions. I hate to say it, Ryan, but we are really lining up for a 49ers-Packers first-round playoffs game.
Yeah, I'll take it, though, because I remember a few games into the season, both of us thought our teams were dead. Yeah. The 49ers have looked really good since then. The Packers, I thought they had no chance at the playoffs. I mean, if we just make the playoffs, I'll be happy enough. Right. Anything can happen when you get there. I mean, you'd probably like the Niners in that spot, but Aaron Rodgers against Brock Purdy, it wouldn't shock you if Rodgers did it either. I think that'd be a great game to watch.
It would. I'll be honest with you. I do not want, of all the possible matchups, I do not want to face Rodgers in the first round.
Yeah, I wouldn't if I were you either.
Yeah. I mean, you look at some of the other teams there. The Giants, the Commanders, Seattle. The Commanders are out now, but Seattle, the Lions, like they all I feel pretty good about that. The Packers have not been great all year, but hot right now. Rodgers is obviously a guy that can win any game at any point. The Niners have done well against him in the playoffs, which kind of even scares me more. Like he kind of owes them one. So that should be. I imagine that would be the primetime Sunday game that everybody's going to want to watch. I imagine the NFL would put that game, kind of center stage. That'd be two huge franchises, big names. That'd be definitely the primetime game right there.
Yeah, awesome game.
Yeah.
So Rodgers going back to California against a team that owns him, as you mentioned.
Yep. It would be fun. It'd be stressful for me, but it'd be fun. Then again, any playoff games would be stressful for me, so you might as well do it. But yeah, let's look at the slate though. I mentioned not only no games over 43, every single game is 13 games between 38 and 43 in the Vegas total. Like this is literally a week where everybody is just clumped together. So I'm going to flip through the games here. A little different than normal. I'm just gonna mention what teams need in these games. I think it'll be helpful for do teams need to win? Do teams just sit? A lot of times we get weeks where both teams are eliminated. Those are good games. Like guys are like going out there. Once you get on the field, I think guys are they're gonna play. They're gonna play to win. They're gonna play hard. You're putting stuff on film. But teams that are going to sit guys is really important. Top game on the slate, total wise. I'm just going to go total order. Giants at Eagles. That game is 43. The Eagles need to win. They need to win now. They've kind of put themselves in a spot where they have to win a game. They do get the number 1 seed in the NFC if they win. The Giants are locked into the 6th seed in the playoffs, so they have no real reason to play hard in this game. Brian Daboll said, it's a game we're going to play. We're going to try and win. I don't believe him. I think the Saquon's going to get rested pretty good here.
Yeah, I think the Giants players, all the Giants key players will be rested.
Yeah. I mean, they may start, they may play a few series, but I don't think they get more than a half at most, I would think.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Eagles are favored by 14 in this game for a reason. Vegas knows what's going on here.
Right. And, I said I expected Hurts to play last week. He didn't, but he's going to play this week. I think some news just came out this morning. He seems like he's healthy. The spread's huge. I think people are going to go to Hurts in cash games. Actually,
I do too. And when we get to Hurts, we'll talk about what his motivation looks like.
Yeah, sorry, I'll let you finish running through the games. You're good. You're good.
That's good. No, that's good. I wanted to just get your feel on some of these. If you have a game where you like, let me know too, because there's not many to focus on. Vikings at Bears is a 43 spread. The Vikings are guaranteed the 3 seed. Can move up to the 2 if they win and the 49ers lose, but not a ton there. That may be a game where if they get up early, they rest some guys. Justin Fields is not playing for Chicago, so the Vikings should have I would say the Vikings should roll, except for the fact that the Vikings just don't roll in any game. So it's they're kind of a mess right now. So maybe they want some good feelings there. Patriots at Bills. Bills need to win for seeding, although it's become very complicated with the Damar Hamlin situation. I should note this morning, really good update on Damar Hamlin. FaceTiming with his teammates, breathing tube is out. Really awesome news. I did not think we'd get Monday night. I did not think we can get an update on Friday morning that he had a breathing tube that was talking to his teammates. So really awesome there. But the Bills do need to win for seeding. I'm not going to go through all the AFC Championship game, coin flip kind of stuff that neutral site situations going on. But they do need to win for seeding. And the Patriots winning in the playoffs. This is one of the games where it looks like both teams are going to play to win.
Yep, and almost by default, I think it's one I like the best.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what people are going to do with Josh Allen and the Bills, but I think they're one of the better stacks on this slate. And the Patriots have 1 or 2 guys you could come back with, Jacoby Myers or Hunter Henry. But yeah, just in general, both teams are playing to win. The Bills, after that scary Monday night, awesome news about Hamlin.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is one of the games to target, I think. Don't you agree?
I think your question is what people are going to do with Josh Allen. I think people are going to play Josh Allen. I think Allen and Diggs are going to be really popular this week. I think there's a little bit of narrative street there that they're going to come out after dealing with everything. People are going to want to play Bills. I think it's obviously changed from a awful story to a really inspiring story here the last couple of days. We've gotten good news. I think people want to play Bills, and I think they just line up well. I think Diggs is actually pretty cheap. I think he's 7,900 this week. He feels like he's cheap. He's kind of a quiet end of the season here. Although it looked like Monday night he had a couple catches early, was probably going to have a big game. I think people are going to play Bills to answer your question.
Yeah, I think they will too. I think I am too.
Yeah, the game that I really like I think this game's gonna go over the numbers. Actually, you're gonna think I'm crazy. Usually, when I say you think I'm crazy, that works out pretty well. So that's good. Panthers Saints is 42. Both teams are eliminated. I kind of like this game to go over the total. I think both teams can make it happen a little bit. I think the Panthers defense is really struggling right now. We saw the reason we liked Mike Evans last week is the Panthers just can't stop outside receivers, and Evans showed that those 3 touchdowns. He was beating guys pretty well. Good balls from Brady, but Evans was kind of flying by guys. I think the Panthers will score a little bit. Sam Darnold's playing well. They scored well last week. They're running the ball well over the last month or so. I think this one goes over 42. Kind of a weird game that I do like from a DFS perspective.
Yeah, that's the one I was hoping you were going to say, actually.
Oh, nice. I like we're on the same page there.
Yeah, and some news to pay attention to in this one. It seems like Taysom Hill might sit, which would actually be great. That's what I want for this game, because Dalton is so cheap at 4,800, and Olave and Shaheed already look like good plays. They'd be even better plays with Taysom out. Yeah, you mentioned how bad the Panthers have been against the pass, and yeah, there can be some points in this game. DJ Moore's been doing well, so yeah, I like that game too.
Yeah, it's weird because Taysom Hill being out, it really helps. It helps Dalton, it helps Juwan Johnson, and it helps Kamara. Like Taysom Hill had 2 of the 3 carries inside the 5 last week. Like Taysom Hill is hard to play, but he just kind of messes stuff up for a bunch of guys the way they do stuff. So that's actually, if he sits, that's actually pretty good from defining who to play on the Saints. So that's,
he's been getting a ton of work. He's just always in there in the red zone. So yeah, it's huge for the rest of the Saints.
Yeah, we've got Rams Seahawks at 41.5. Seattle is in with a win and a Packers loss. I think the NFL kind of screwed Seattle with the scheduling, by the way. I think it's really tough because if they win, they need the Packers to lose. And if they win, they knock Detroit out, and then Detroit has no real motivation to beat Green Bay. So I think that's I understand its ratings. I understand they want Rodgers on Sunday night. It's a game that matters. But I think that they kind of did Seattle dirty there. I think that those games should have been at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. The NFL just couldn't resist putting that Packers-Lions game Sunday night. It's too bad for the Seahawks.
It really is. So, if they win, it makes it interesting in terms of the fact that, the Packers need to win. But it's just if they lose, if Seattle loses, though, that Green Bay-Detroit game becomes winner take all, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what I'm rooting for, but I could see it. I could see Seattle losing that game.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams played them tight last time they played, but obviously as a Packers fan, you'd prefer if Detroit doesn't have a ton of motivation. But for Sunday Night Football purposes, if Seattle loses, that game becomes really, really fun really fast. Cowboys and Commanders is 41. Dallas is still breathing in the East with Philly's kind of hiccups down the stretch here. Dallas can win the East with a win and an Eagles loss. I think they probably play hard for a while, but if they get up on Washington, who's starting back to Taylor Heineke, right? No, it's Sam Howell. Sam Howell's starting this week. So I don't know what they're doing in Washington with their quarterbacks. They've made a mess of it the last month, but got to think that Dallas at least has some motivation for 3 quarters.
Yeah, and they should know, right? If the Eagles win, they'll have nothing to play for, I think. Or
are those games at different times too?
Yeah.
That sucks.
Oh,
too.
No, sorry. They're both at 3.
Okay, good. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah,
3,
so I agree.
3. You and your Central Time.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I was like, what NFL game starts at 3? I'm like, oh, that's right.
Yeah, sorry. So they're 4:25 Eastern games. But I agree with you. It's probably a spot I want to avoid. Cowboys go for 2 or 3 quarters. Who knows how much those guys play? They have so many players, anyways. Yeah, just probably avoid that spot.
I do like the Cowboys a bit. So I think that the game's at the same time, which helps. You freaked me out a little bit there, but no, I do like the Cowboys a little bit. But I do think that if they get up, it could be a 3-quarter game, which is always scary. We saw it last week at Jacksonville. I talked about a lot last week, and Jacksonville went way up, but Trevor Lawrence didn't do much of it early. It was they had a big run. They had Jermichael Hasty, that defensive touchdown, and then you're like, oh, well, Lawrence is going to sit, and he didn't do anything for the 21 points. Whereas a normal game, they get up 21, it's a bummer, he didn't do anything, but you're like, oh, we could throw a couple touchdowns in the second half. So it's one of those things that if you do it, you need Dak to be the guy who throws the passes for the first 3 touchdowns. You just need it. There's no catch up in the last quarter and a half. And we saw it with Lawrence last week. People had him in fantasy, championships. People had him in DFS. It was really rough. And just the game script, if the game script isn't the way you want it and they sit, it gets pretty tough pretty fast. We got 3 games that are 40-point totals. I'll go through this really quick. We've got Tampa and the Falcons. The Bucs are locked into the 4 seed. They've won in the NFC South. They have said Todd Bowles has said the stars will play. I question how long. They have no reason to win, and they play the next week. We have Browns Steelers at 40. The Steelers are somehow still alive. Mike Tomlin really never dies. It's crazy. They are in with a win, and New England and Miami losses. So New England plays the Bills, so that's possible. And then Miami is obviously a mess with their quarterback situation. They don't have one right now. We don't know if Bridgewater is going to play or not. So Steelers are weirdly still alive there. And then the other game at 40, Chargers Broncos. LA needs a win for the 5 seed, which is a pretty big deal. There are 3 obviously super teams in the AFC. If they get the 5 seed, they avoid those. They play the winner of the South. But they will know if Baltimore loses early. So that is one where the early game could really change some motivation. If Baltimore loses to Cincinnati, which is obviously very possible, the Chargers don't need to win. This is the one you mentioned with the Cowboys. This one worries me even more because we're going to know the Chargers are going to know what they need to do, and that really scares me. That if Baltimore loses to Cincy, I think we see the Chargers shut it down pretty early.
Oh yeah, totally agree. And Vegas agrees too. Denver's favored in this game. The Chargers have like an 18-point implied total. And same with the Bucks Falcons game. Falcons are 4-point favorites in that game.
Yeah.
Can't see Brady and any of the key players playing more than a quarter. I think you'll see a lot of Blaine Gabbert and just all the backups. So I think it's a pretty good spot for some Falcons like Algier and Drake London.
Yeah, I do too. I'm always like I love when they're like, oh, it's an NFL game, we're gonna play, we're trying to win, but like they say that, but it'd be dumb to play guys these 4 quarters. I mean, it's just you're locked in, you're playing the next week. Like if you had a week off, I get it. You never want to be too rusty, but we're playing next week. I can't see these teams. I just think it would just be stupid to play guys, but Cardinals, Niners, 39.5. These totals are getting really gross on us really fast here. The Niners can get the 1 seed if they were to win and the Eagles are going to lose. Obviously, the Eagles are 14-point favorites, and the Niners will know when they play. But the Niners do have to win to get the 2 seed. However, again, if the Vikings happen to lose to the Bears, they'll know that they don't need to win that game. So another game where I think they'll need to win to get the 2 seed, but I think they're going to take it easy on guys. I think especially Christian McCaffrey, who's been questionable all week. I think that I tend to think he might not even play, but if he does, I think they take it pretty easy on him. I don't think we see a week where they feed McCaffrey this week.
No, I don't either. I think Elijah Mitchell is going to play as well. So, yeah, just another reason I think to be off McCaffrey this week.
Yeah, they opened up the practice window for Mitchell. I don't know if how much he can get there if he does. If McCaffrey doesn't play, we'll talk about someone else that I really like for a cheap price this week. The problem is we may not know that. We may not know that until the Niners know if they need the game, so it might be tough. But if he gets ruled out early, it gets really interesting there pretty quick. 3 other games that are low totals. We mentioned this Ravens-Bengals game. It's 39 on the Vegas total. The Bengals again in the situation where they need to win, but there's going to be some weird seeding stuff with the canceled game. They still have a chance at the 1 seed. They need to win this game to avoid the NFL announced yesterday if the Ravens win, they'll do a coin flip for who's at home in the wild card game. The Bengals have won the division, but they're going to do a coin flip for home field because the Ravens would have 1 more game played. The Ravens can move to 5 seed with a win and a Chargers loss and avoid the AFC top 3. So the Ravens do have a lot of motivation here. However, we don't know if Lamar Jackson's going to play.
Yeah, I think the Bengals are an interesting stack in this game. I just don't really think people are going to go there, and without a lot of spots to go, I don't know. Burrow, we've seen him win a bunch of slates when nobody ever plays him, and there's not, I don't know. I guess, what do you think people are going to do with the Bengals? Because just to jump to receiver for a second, there's not going to be a lot to spend up for by process of elimination, and people are going to end up on Chase probably as one of the more popular guys. Do you think Chase is a good play this week? Do you think the Bengals starters play for 4 quarters? I mean, they kind of need this game.
I think they do need this game, and I think obviously the situation on Monday was horrible, but I think from a football situation, they need this game too. They need to try and move on as a team, but more than anything, they didn't play last week. The last thing you want to do is not play last week, then kind of play this week and then play a playoff game. It's hard to ramp it up. I think the Bengals are pretty much a full go this week. And I think they, there's so many situations there in the mix. I think they're just going to go out there and try and win this game. They do not want to go to Baltimore next week to play a playoff game. They do not want to, after all the stuff they've been through, they played so well the second half. I do not think they want to leave it up to a coin flip to go play a whole game. Maybe they sit guys if they get up big in the fourth quarter. But the problem with this game is it's a tough matchup. If it was Burrow and Chase against someone that it's a pretty easy matchup. I love it, but Baltimore's tough against the pass. They have not allowed a lot of big quarterback games, but I think the Bengals are a full go in this game. I think they want to win this game pretty badly.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I think, yeah, and it's a tough matchup, which it will keep some people off. They're not going to be one of the more popular stacks, I don't think. So I think they're sneaky on this slate.
Yeah, I do too. Especially with this low total. I don't think teams will be like, oh, I want the game with the 39 total. So for my stack, but then we got to a couple of games at 38. We have Jets Dolphins. Dolphins need a win and a Patriots loss, but they're playing the Bills, so pretty good chance for Miami. They are kind of a mess right now. They've lost a bunch of games in a row. There's some rumors this week that if they lose again, everybody might get fired. Like if they were to fire Mike McDaniel, I think it would be just an abomination. He get hired in about 9 seconds by someone else. And then we've got the loser bowl down here at the bottom. 38 Texans Colts. I don't think anybody's going to really want to play much of this game. The Texans have some motivation here in the fact they need to lose to get the number 1 pick. So they have motivation to not do well. You hope they don't mess that up. So it's interesting. It's a fascinating slate from an angle of kind of breaking it down to figure out what's going to happen. There are going to be people who do well. There's going to be points scored in some games. I like Panthers Saints. I like Patriots Bills. You mentioned. I actually also like Chargers Broncos, but only if it works out. So it's really hard. Like I would like that game if everybody's playing, but I just think there's so much risk for early benching. And if Baltimore loses to Cincy, this game kind of goes out the window pretty quick.
Yeah, it's a tough slate. If I had to just break it down from who I like the most, I would say the Bills, Eagles, Bengals, as far as 3 big favorites who you could sort of make onslaught stacks with.
Yeah.
And then I agree with you, the Saints game, Saints Panthers.
Yeah. So we'll get through some positions here and kind of break it down. Do you think that there's any really obvious, high percentage plays? I don't really think there are a ton. I think that Hurts is going to be popular. I think that Stephon Diggs at wide receiver will be popular. He's 7,900. I think a lot of people are going to play Diggs. I think a lot of people play Allen. I think Hurts is probably the most popular quarterback. Diggs is the most popular expensive receiver. I think Garrett Wilson in that game, he's 5,800. I know he was pretty quiet last week. We still had a lot of targets. I think 5,800. I think a lot of people do play Garrett Wilson with Mike White there. I don't know that there's much else that's like super obvious or high percentage. I think that Jordan Mason, if Christian McCaffrey would be ruled out, he's 5,000. He'd be pretty popular pretty quick. But I don't know, Zach Moss against in that game against Houston, just matchup wise, 5,200. I guess what I'm saying is I don't see any like super obvious chalk plays this week.
Yeah, there's not nearly as many as usual. Yeah. I see a few. I think Flacco just got announced as the starter over Mike White.
Oh, did he? Oh, well,
I'm not sure.
That makes me less excited about Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, me too. So yeah, QB, I think Hurts will be the most popular. I agree. It's just going to be kind of easy to spend up for him.
And good call by you. I can confirm that Schefter said that Mike White's out and Joe Flacco will start with Zach Wilson backing him up.
Okay.
Gross.
Yeah, at running back, I think people are going to look at Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, I like that.
The Seahawks needing to win. He 23 carries and 26 carries in the past 2 games. He's rushed for 100 both times. After that, I think people are going to look at Cam Akers in that same matchup. A little bit lower. I think Algier will end up being pretty popular. He's just been getting a lot of work, and it's a good matchup for the Falcons. And Tampa's going to be resting their guys. But other than that, yeah, there's not much. Nothing that looks like those guys seem like they're going to be the most popular.
Yeah, and and even more popular. I don't think they'll be like uber popular. I think that it's spread around a little bit. I like a lot of running backs in the low 6s this week. That's a range for me I liked a lot. So I think that there's enough guys in there. You mentioned a bunch of
Harris.
Yeah, I like Najee Harris too, which I never liked Najee Harris. I actually like him this week. So it's very spread out, which makes it fun for DFS purposes. You got to find the right guys, but there's not going to be any obvious plays. So let's jump into the kind of the tournament aspect of this whole thing. We'll talk about quarterbacks first, but first a note from our sponsors at Monkey Knife Fight. Football is officially back on Monkey Knife Fight with all the NFL action you're looking for. And if college football is more your speed, you got plenty of that too. On Monkey Knife Fight, there's no sharks, no salary caps, and no math. It's just easy to play, easy to win daily fantasy player props. Join now at monkeyknifefight.com. You get your first game free, then use promo code RWNFL to get first deposit matched instantly up to $100. So what are you waiting for? Join Monkey Knife Fight today. Also, a quick note from our sponsor, the Blue Wire Network. We thank you for indulging us there. Ryan, let's jump into quarterbacks. I think we kind of mentioned the top two guys on the slate are going to be popular from a stacking aspect. We got Josh Allen, we have Jalen Hurts. Do you find yourself preferring one of them? From our talks earlier, it sounds like you think maybe Hurts, but I wanted to ask you who you like best among the two guys.
I'm just going to play Hurts in cash games because he's going to be the most popular and he's 200 cheaper. I'm not sure that I have a preference overall. I guess I really don't at the moment. I'm going to play both guys in tournaments. I was planning on having some Eagles stacks and having some Bills stacks. So I don't really like one more than the other. I don't know. Maybe you can. Maybe you do.
I do. I prefer Josh Allen. The second half's been a struggle, but he's coming around a little bit. He has 7 touchdowns total the last couple of games. He was really good. He's been really good recently, except for that. It been against New England. I mean, except for that one really bad weather game last year. So good team history here. I think Buffalo's going to come out just fired up this week. I think that they've had a really tough week, understandably. I think they're going to really get out there, and I think they're going to just roll this week. I don't really like New England very much. I think Buffalo's going to really score well. I like pairing him with Diggs a ton. I don't think that's going to be, I'm not breaking any ground there. It's going to be pretty popular. I worry a little bit with Hurts I don't know that they're going to really run him a ton. I just don't know they want to risk him before the playoffs start. I think he's obviously going to play, needs to knock some rust off. Once he gets out there, he'll probably play. But they're favored by 14 this game. I just worry about the second half of this game a bunch. So I think while I love Jalen Hurts as a fantasy player, I think it's a pretty clear Josh Allen preference for me among the high guys.
Okay, so I agree 100% that it's a Josh Allen spot and a Bill spot after that Monday night game. The thing that pushed me or just make me like Hurts a little is that I agree about the blowout risk. I agree you don't really know what's going to happen in the fourth quarter. Most of his big performances have been in the first half. Most of his big performances have been in blowouts. Most of his fantasy points come in the first half, and he hasn't really got much in the fourth quarter. So I think he can get there in 3 quarters, no problem. Even passing the ball, we've seen AJ Brown and Devontae Smith have huge first halves where Hurts is throwing for 250 in the first half. So I just think even in a blowout, he can get there. I guess I slightly prefer Allen, though, for the reasons you said.
And it's a good point on Hurts with the blowouts early. And the nice thing with Hurts is they have to win, and he's got 2 healthy stud receivers too. I mean, Devontae Smith has come on in a huge way the last 5 weeks. AJ Brown. There's not a lot of great quarterback situations this week where you've got 2 great receivers. You got motivation to win, so it sets up pretty well. I do like Allen. I do like Allen more, but I think they'll both be pretty popular. So. Those are pretty easy ones. I think a lot of people are going to play those 2 guys. What are you doing the otherwise? Like, talk about some sneaky stacks. Who do you like kind of in this next tier maybe of quarterbacks or guys that you think are under rostered? You mentioned Joe Burrow. He's 7,300. I think you like him. Who else do you like for kind of a sneakier stack this week? Because it's tough to find them outside of Hurts and Josh Allen.
Yeah, definitely Burrow. Pairing him with Chase or Higgins, and maybe even Tyler Boyd, who's only 4,600. Running it back with Mark Andrews. I like the Bengals as a sneaky stack. Other than that, I think I would just pay all the way down. There's so many like guys 5K or even below this week. And Allen and Hurts I think are good enough options where I don't really want to mess with anything else. Just go all the way down. I don't know. Do you like anything in this mid-range?
I don't really love the mid-range, but you're talking if you're talking going down in price. Who do you like down there? Let's go can go 7,000 and below, whatever you want to do.
I think we both we both are gonna like Andy Dalton for 4,800. I think he's got great receivers to pair with, and you can run it back with DJ Moore. That's a cheap stack that looks pretty good. The other one. Yeah, you mentioned the Broncos. I mean, I could never play Russ
I know.
After all this, but I don't know. I guess I don't really like. Yeah, I don't know. Dalton is the one I was looking at, I guess.
So crazy enough, I like the other side in that game. So I think if I do it, I'm actually going Sam Darnold at 5,300 over Dalton. Sam Darnold was 23 of 37 for 343 and 3 touchdowns like we against the Buccaneers in a game the Buccaneers wanted to win. Not only has YPA, his yards per attempt, been really good the last 3 weeks, it's been the best in the NFL season. The starting quarterback, he's 8.8 YPA since he started. Now, I'm not saying that Sam Darnold's good or great, but he's playing really well. This offense is playing well. My only concern here is they run the ball too much, but I think New Orleans will do enough to make them throw. But New Orleans has been really good against quarterbacks. So the matchup worries me. But if I'm going to go cheap in this game, I actually think I like Darnold at 5,300 more than Dalton at 4,800. They're close. I think they're both are playable this week with a really low price. The fact that there's not a lot of games to stack. If you're going to go cheap, I think I prefer Darnold. I'm actually going to think I'm going to play Darnold lineup. I did not think that would be a thing I say even 5 weeks ago. So it's crazy how the season works. The other one I do like here, I do like Geno Smith at 6,000 against the Rams. The game that Seattle's got to win. He's been quiet the last 3 weeks. 4 touchdown passes. I feel like 7 the 3 weeks before that. So I've been a little quiet lately, but he lit up the Rams last time they played, which I really like too. The Packers, Seattle needs to win, had the Packers lose. The Packers play later, so Seattle's motivation here is not in question. This is a full go spot for them. He's 6,000. He was 363 and 3 touchdowns against the Rams in week 13. I really like Geno in this lot. We'll talk later about receivers. I think DK Metcalf's one of my favorite receivers this week. I love the Geno Metcalf staff this week. You have to find something to come back with the Rams. Maybe it's Cam Akers. Maybe you want to play one of their cheap receivers. But Geno's one that I probably like the most in this mid range. I did not think I would say that coming off the last few weeks when I looked at the slate. But I really like Geno if I'm going to go cheaper.
Yeah, I like Geno a bit too, and I do like DK Metcalf. I guess, I almost said it, and now I'm going to say it. I think you could play Russ this week.
There it is. How much? I looked earlier, but how much is Russ?
Okay, so I mean, and I've talked pretty bad about Russ all season, but he's 5,400, and I think that you're going to know about the Chargers. And it's likely that they're going to rest guys, and it's likely that they're playing for nothing. And, I mean, Russ has put up 25 in 2 out of the last 3. He can run for touchdowns, but his pass catchers are cheap, too. Sutton and Judy, I mean, playing against backups, you got to think, like, Russ is still out to prove something, especially at home. He's at least a guy that's going to be out there trying for 4 quarters. You could see him throwing for 303 touchdowns in this spot. I mean, I'm not saying I'm necessarily going to do it, but I probably will in some of my lower stakes stuff. I don't know. It just seems fitting to do it in this spot for Russ.
I actually like it. That's a very like week 18-ish kind of thing. You can see it happening. And you're right. I mean, you mentioned we talk about with Brown and Devontae. I mean, Russ has 2 really good receivers that are healthy. I mean, Judy and Sutton, good players. Sutton had a great catch last week. They got ruled back for a really bad offensive pass interference call. On replay, which is a terrible call. So Sutton looks healthy, looks pretty good. I really like that play. I think he threw the ball 38 times last week. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. I'm never going to come on here and really support Russ. He's had a horrible, horrible year. But in week 18 against a team with no motivation, that could be really, really interesting. I like that one a lot. I'm gonna add that in here. I'm gonna go Geno, Darnold, and Russ as my 3 this range. I'm gonna jump on and you talk me into that one.
Yeah, I talked myself into it too. I have to do it now.
I agree there. I think it's kind of a fun spot. I think that it's one of those things that you can maybe. I have to look at exactly who's playing in the afternoon, but if like the Chargers won and were motivated, if the Ravens won and the Chargers motivated, maybe you could kind of late swap some of those and go. You can maybe flip to Dak, you can flip to Geno, in the afternoon, which might work pretty well. So if like for some reason you get a feeling that the Chargers are going to come at Russ hard, you could swap at that point, but. I do like it. I think it's a chance, even if the Chargers have to win, that maybe that game gets back and forth and that gets really interesting pretty quick.
Yeah, and I think just in general, it's good to remember that this is a slate where it's more okay than usual to take some chances.
Yeah, really good point. Really good point.
There's a lot of uncertainty and not a lot of sure things. Just amazing spots. So it's okay to get off the chalk a little.
Yeah. That's a really good one. I like that. That's a good point on this week too. You got to remember that there are not a lot of high total games. Where if you go with a low total game, they're all low total games. So you can almost anybody if you find something you like is pretty playable. So feel go with your gut feel on that one. And I do like the Russ play. I'm gonna have a Russ lineup. I decided you talked me into that. If that one wins, I will give you full credit for that one. Let's get into the other positions, running back and receiver. But first, a note from our sponsors from all year of No House Advantage. No House Advantage is changing the game by offering the most dynamic fantasy sports platform available today. Playing pick'em contests versus other people for a shot and winning big cash prizes. Download the app, choose a contest, select your player props, earn points for correct picks, and climb the leaderboard for your shot at hundreds of thousands of dollars every week. You can also test your skills versus the house and 20x your entry if you hit all your picks. Bet on up to 5 player prop over-unders or individual player matchups across every major sports league, including the NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, MMA, and NASCAR. Sign up with promo code NHAWIRE, that's NHAWIRE at nohouseadvantage.com, or download the app on the app stores to get a first deposit match up to $25. Make sure to check out the No House Advantage today, where it experiences daily fantasy sports redefined. It's not just how you play, but also where you play. You do not want to miss out on this. So Ryan, as we do all season, jump into No Has Advantage here. Look at a couple of player props. Who are a couple of guys you like? Give everybody an edge here. I think we did pretty well last week on these again. Give me a couple of players that you like to go over their over under on yards or touchdown passes this week. Kind of give people a head start on their player props this week.
For sure. Yeah, we've been doing well on these for a while now. 2 spots I'm going to focus on.
All right.
The first one is the Falcons and Algier. I mentioned him last week. He went over his number. I think they're going to be playing against Buccaneer backups for most of the game. I think he has a good chance to rush for over 100 here. So the over on Algier. And then also Drake London. At least 5 catches in 4 straight, 6 catches, 7 catches. I like him to go over. And the other spot is the Saints, specifically if Taysom Hill ends up getting ruled out. I like Olave and Shaheed to go over.
Nice.
And I think it's even a pretty good spot for Kamara if Taysom Hill gets ruled out. So yeah, Saints and Falcons.
All right, I like that. I like that a lot. I'm going to go with someone that I was down on in drafts, didn't like his draft price, but I think is peaking right now. I'm going to go Najee Harris over his number. We'll talk about him in a second when we do the full running back breakdown, but his first 100-yard rushing game last week. This is a great matchup against the Browns. The Browns are allowing 5.1 yards per carry to running backs. Allowed 15 touchdowns. I think Najee is peaking at the right point. He's a top 20 running back in 4 straight weeks, TDs in 3 of 4. So I like Najee a lot over his number. And then a guy I mentioned earlier, I'm going to go with DK Metcalf on the over at No House Advantage. He's shut down by the Jets last week. I love stud receivers a week after they got shut down. He had 3 yards last week on 5 targets. I love he's going to be pissed off in the camp or in practice all week. He had 127 yards when they played the Rams in week 13. Good matchup for him. I love the bounce back off a horrible game. The Seahawks need to win. I love Metcalf this week, so I'm going to go Metcalf over his number. I want to thank No House Advantage for their sponsorship all season long on the podcast. Really, really appreciate that. It's been fun to kind of break down the player props each week too, and we've done pretty well. So hopefully we've helped out people that are playing on that platform. So Ryan, expensive running back is a really tough spot this week. Among the guys over 7,000, we have Christian McCaffrey's 9,300, but questionable. Who knows how much the Niners want to play him? Even if the Niners need to win, I don't know if they really lean on him. With Mitchell maybe back, they've got Jordan Mason, they got Ty Davis-Price, who looked good last week on a couple runs. Then we have Austin Eckler right beneath him, who's been an absolute monster. Another huge game last week, 18 touchdowns, lead the NFL. But if the Ravens lose that game, the Chargers have no motivation. I think the Chargers would love to give Eckler an easy week this week. And then we dropped down. We have Chubb at 7,500. We have Dalvin Cook at 7,300. Been disappointing. I've liked him a couple weeks this year, and the second half has not worked well. Joe Mixon, 7,100. I want to hear what you have to say here, because I don't really love anybody in the running back spot for the price this week. You gotta pay up for these guys. I don't really love paying up, but I'm hoping you can find somebody for me that you like.
Nope, I'm not going to find anybody for you. I'm not paying up either. I don't think I would go above Kamara at 66, or even like Kenneth Walker at 64. That's pretty much where I'm starting. I was going to see if maybe you could sell me on one of the expensive guys, but maybe not.
The only one that was intriguing to me a little bit is Dalvin Cook. Minnesota has some motivation to win, although, it's just seeding. But just the fact the Bears have been absolutely crushed on the ground the last couple weeks. You look at last week, DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams had 33 carries for 222 yards combined. The week before that, Devin Singletary, James Cook had 23 for 205. Like, they're getting crushed on the ground. Dalvin Cook's not been good. He's averaging like under 4 yards per carry the second half. Been a really blah second half for him. I just worry about them easing off the gas, especially they play the next week. This is one of their key guys to their offense. So I think the scare of how much he's going to play and how many snaps they're going to give him, gets me off of it. I like it a little bit, but that was the only one. Chubb has been over 80 yards in 4 of his last 5, but this matchup against Pittsburgh is pretty tough. They don't have a ton of motivation. It's been a season where they really leaned on Chubb all year, but he's been a brutal second half. No touchdowns the last 5 games. Just zero pass involvement makes him really touchdown dependent. We never catch passes. You got to score touchdowns. It's kind of the way it works in PPR. So I guess my answer is, maybe a little bit Cook, but I think I'm with you. I think I'm going 7,000 under on running backs this week and paying up elsewhere. I think it's good to know this strategy wise. You can pay up this week for Hurts or Allen because if you're not paying more than 7,000 at running back, you can pay up at receiver and you can play Josh Allen, Diggs together. It's more workable this week than it is a lot of weeks.
Yep, I agree. Just worth mentioning, I guess you could play Joe Mixon. He had 7 catches in his last game, 5 before that. He's at least, you think you're going to get 4 quarters out of him. I say that because he has one of the better projections for that expensive range, and the Bengals are at least still playing for something. So while I'm not going to do it, I think he's viable.
I do too. This has been this Joe Mixon, the game log is like the weirdest thing I've ever seen. He has 6 rushing touchdowns all year. 4 of them were in one game. It's wild. No, he had the biggest game of the whole season. He had a 5 touchdown game. He's only over 100 yards once all year. It was in that game also. It's been the weirdest year. He's just a nothing except for that one game. He was the best running back in football that game. From a motivation standpoint, on the field standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. The Ravens are top 10 in yards per carry against, so it's a tough matchup. But that's kind of the Cincinnati there this whole week is they have got to play for a lot, but it's a tough matchup. So it's tough. I usually don't play Joe Mixon. I've regretted it once all year, same. So it's just it's tough. 6,000 is the range. This is the range where I like a lot of guys. There are a lot of playable guys in this range. We have Kamara at 6,600. Kenneth Walker, you mentioned earlier, we're talking about who's going to be popular, 6,400. Cam Akers, we mentioned 6,200. Najee Harris, I just mentioned we're talking about player props, 6,100. And we got Raheem Mostert, 6,000, and Jeff Wilson, 5,500. That game is hard to figure. Miami, they could do well, but it's hard to figure out who would be, and they don't have a quarterback. Miles Sanders, 5,900. So I'm going to stop there in this range. He's going to be popular also in a game the Eagles need to win. He crushed the Giants last time I played. But these guys in here, I like a lot of these guys. It's nice to like a lot of these guys. We're in the range before we didn't like a lot. But who are your favorites in this range?
Well, first, I just want to say when Scott likes Najee Harris, it's a good spot for Najee Harris.
Fair point. I am not a Najee guy.
And I like him a lot too this week. So I would say Najee Harris and the 2 running backs from Seattle and the Rams, Walker and Akers. I think I'm pretty much just going to play those 3. I don't know. Is there anyone else that really stands out to you?
I love Harris and Walker, my 2 favorites in this range, pretty significantly. I mentioned Harris already. I mean, this is a great matchup. Cleveland's allowing over 5 yards per carry to running backs, 15 touchdowns. Pittsburgh has a lot of motivation to win, although Joe Flacco starting makes them less likely to make the playoffs because that certainly improves Miami's odds, and Pittsburgh needs Miami to lose. But I love Najee. Full go this week. I think that we're looking for teams that are playing guys for 4 quarters, and Pittsburgh is one of those. And then Walker, I mean, the Rams are just getting thrashed on the run right now. Eckler killed them on the ground last week. They're allowing 4.75 yards per carry over the last 4 games. The Rams are obviously they've shut this thing down. Walker's been over 100 yards 2 weeks in a row. Love the spot for him where Seattle needs to win. I don't know how much I'll get there with him because I'm going to play Metcalf and Geno. And obviously, I'm not going to play all of them together. But in my non-Geno Metcalf lineups, it'll be Walker in there. What about Kamara? How do you feel about the 6,600? Another game where he had a lot of touches. He had 17 carries. His use in the passing game is weird. They're using him in the rush game a lot right now, but he hasn't topped 4 targets the last 4 games. Just wild for Alvin Kamara. That makes no sense to me. But maybe without Taysom Hill, that changed a little bit. None of those, the red zone rushes. Taysom had 2 rushes inside the 5 last week. Carolina is really good against the run lately. They're under 3 yards per carry the last 4 games. And they've been really good the whole second half. How do you feel about Kamara right now? Let's go with if Taysom Hill doesn't play, how do you feel about Kamara?
Yeah, that's the thing. If Taysom Hill doesn't play, I feel pretty good about Kamara. I'll definitely play some. I think, as you mentioned, his receiving volume, I think it would increase if Taysom doesn't play. If he does, then I probably wouldn't play any Kamara. He just takes away enough touchdowns and enough receptions.
And it's freaking frustrating to watch.
Yeah, it is. It's very frustrating.
It's week 8. It's week 18. Have some fun. Don't give yourself frustration the last week.
Right, and they've been using him a ton. Taysom. So I think if he's out, yeah, it's a great spot for Kamara, and I will definitely play him.
How do you feel about Miles Sanders at 5,900?
I'm just not going to go there.
That's kind of the Miles Sanders face right there, isn't it? It's been a good year, but it's been rough the last 3 weeks, and maybe that is no Jalen Hurts. He was under 4 yards per carry the last 3 weeks. He did kill the Giants, had 140 yards and 2 scores the last time they played. New York's allowing a lot of yards on the ground, 5.3 yards per carry. They're rough. I like him a little more than you do. I always hesitate to check on Miles Sanders, but I do think this is a pretty good spot for him.
Yeah, I was slightly worried about his health. Yeah, it looks like a good spot on paper. I just don't think I'm going to go there.
I like Harris and Walker and probably Akers more, so it makes it hard for me to get to him. I don't just like other guys more.
Sorry, yeah, I know Sanders was pretty popular last week. That game was crazy in that the Eagles barely even touched the ball in the first half.
It was a weird game.
I think something crazy, like they had only run 3 plays and the game was in the second quarter, 3 plays on offense. So I think Miles Sanders had 2 carries at halftime, maybe 3 carries at halftime. So it was a little unlucky from that standpoint. Yeah, so I don't mind Sanders, but I'm probably not going to go there.
Yeah, New Orleans had some. It was New Orleans, right? New Orleans had some long drives. And then Philly scored quick. They had the 80-yard touchdown to AJ Brown at some point. So it was a strange game. But what about under 6,000? We mentioned Sanders at 5,900. We've got J.K. Dobbins down here at 5,700. You mentioned you like Algier at 5,600. I agree with you there. Solid again last week. Still splitting with Cordell Patterson, but seemed to have not bugged him too much. They both got there last week. Algier's been a top 12 running back in 3 straight games. We have Zach Moss down here. I don't think anybody wants to click on Zach Moss. Then we have Jordan Mason, 5,000 against Arizona. I think that if Kyle Shanahan rules out Christian McCaffrey, I think Mason's going to be really popular. He only has 35 carries in the year, about 6.6 yards per carry. Really good game script here. The Niners are favored against Arizona, starting David Blau. Arizona's allowing 4.6 yards per carry. I think we're going to see a lot of Jordan Mason plays if McCaffrey does not play.
Yeah, I would love Jordan Mason in that spot. I would definitely.
Because I think even if Mitchell plays, I don't think they're going to ride Mitchell coming off this. They're going to want him to the playoffs. They really want the McCaffrey-Mitchell combo for the playoffs. I like it so much that I might even build and try and figure out ways where I can swap to that if I need to. Like maybe if I'm looking here, I have to figure out exactly who plays late and how to work that out. But I think I kind of want to keep a spot in case McCaffrey's questionable going into the game and they rule him out for the late game. I'm looking here, maybe it's Miles Sanders. He's 5,900. He plays late. Maybe it's Kenneth Walker, but I might try to figure. Maybe it's a receiver. Like you could have a 5,000 receiver and use that as a flex spot. Maybe I might keep a spot over Mason on some lineups with the thought that if McCaffrey's ruled out late, maybe people won't be able to shift that easily to him, and you get him a lower percentage than he would have been if McCaffrey was ruled out early.
You absolutely would. That's a fantastic point. I think I'm going to do the same. I think there's, in 50-50 spots, I think you should go with the guy that's in the later game just to leave yourself some flexibility.
Someone like Cortland Sutton works really well in there. Jahan Dotson, maybe. Like you could put. I'm just looking at guys that are in that price range and just under 5,000. Drake London would be great too, but they play early. But the guys that play late, like Sutton or Dotson, a receiver could work really really nicely for that strategy. Even like a Dalton Schultz, you could stick him in a flex at 4,500. There's a lot of ways to do it where you kind of, if Mason plays, you could use him. If he doesn't, you could swap to someone else pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think that's a great strategy.
Playing some fancy stuff right now in Week 18. I like it. What about receiver? We mentioned that paying up a receiver is a little tricky too. You got Justin Jefferson's 9,100. Always great except for when he's not. Last week was really rough. Your boy Jay Alexander, talked a game pre-game and talk about backing it up, man. He shut down Jefferson at a point where he took off his helmet, like hit a ref with it. And it wasn't trying to hit the ref with it, but like kind of accidentally hit the ref with it. Like super frustrated on the sideline. 1 catch for 15 yards. We got Tyreek up here at 8,600, but like their quarterback situation is an absolute disaster. Who knows if Bridgewater is going to play? If not, like they signed Mike Glennon to the practice of someone's practice squad. We've got Skylar Thompson. Skylar Thompson's been terrible. Then you got Chase up here. I'd like at 8,400. CeeDee Lamb's 82. AJ Brown 7,900. Stephon Diggs 7,900. Higgins 76. We could go lower. Devontae Smith's been great, 7,500. Jalen Waddle, 7,300. Same situation as Tyreek. What do you do with expensive receivers this week? I think there's some plays up here, but there's some landmines in here too.
Yeah, just like Chase and Diggs, and maybe Eagles. So Bills,
Okay.
Bengals, Eagles. I just don't really want to target any of these other guys. Justin Jefferson, man, I was laughing because Jair did the gritty after a relatively routine pass breakup in the first quarter. That was in the first quarter, and
he was going to do that the first play he made. You could tell he was like in his mind he knew he was going to do, and he broke it out fast.
Yeah, man, he was up for that game. Yeah, that was cool to see. So yeah, I just I don't trust the Vikings' motivation in this spot. Tyreek with Skylar Thompson, not for me. CD and the Cowboys, no. Like, I don't mind AJ Brown. I think he'll be like less popular than Diggs for sure, and Chase. Yeah. So I don't mind that. But just as far as the best option, I agree with you about Diggs, and I always like Chase.
Yeah, I think I like Lamb a little more than you do, just because Washington is just horrible against outside receivers. Like, they've given up all year. I do worry about motivation there, but I think that they play the same time as the Eagles do. So maybe if that, it's hard to see Giants-Eagles staying close. But if that game stays close, then that becomes really interesting for Dallas. But that's a hard situation to bank on with Eagles as 14-point favorites. So I like Lamb a little more than you, but I think I like Chase. I definitely like Chase and Diggs more, so I probably won't get to very much Lamb. I love Diggs this week. 7,900, quiet the last 2 weeks, no touchdowns, 37, 60, and 26 yards. One of those games was the Bears. It was a bad weather game. He hasn't had 100 yards since week 10. Did play well against New England in week 13. He had 92 yards and a touchdown. The Pats play a lot of man coverage, which I like for Diggs. I just think this is a full go Bills spot. They're going to want to win this game. They're coming off a week where they didn't play. They played whatever that was, 8 minutes of the first quarter. I think they're going to want to get going. I think their offense has been not quite the same in the second half. And they're going to want to fix that before the first game. I think they're going to want to try and get, as high up as things can. If the Chiefs lose on Saturday night, this game becomes really big for them, because they get, they could the number one seed without all the coin flip and all that kind of stuff. So I think they're going to play full go. I love Diggs to make a lot of noise this week. 700. I think we've kind of covered that, but just to say, it'd be Diggs, then Chase for me, then Lamb would be probably third. So. What about in this cheaper range? If you get to the 6,000s, I've mentioned I really like DK Metcalf this week, 6,700. Again, receiver coming off a bad game. I love big name guys when they don't do well. One catch for 3 yards on 5 targets against the Jets. It's a brutal game for DK. Mentioned he smoked the Rams in week 13, so I love that too. What else are you doing in the 6,000s there? There are a lot of guys in the lower 6,000s I like, but I want to hear what you got.
Yeah, I'm looking. I like DK as well.
Okay.
I'm looking at Judy, Olave, and DJ Moore. I definitely would like Olave. Again, if Taysom Hill's out, I would like Olave a little bit more. Judy, I think this is a sneaky spot for the Broncos. Yep. Like we said before, I prefer Courtland Sutton for cheaper, but I think Judy, I don't really think people will roster Judy, so makes it interesting. And then I like DJ Moore just because I like that game, and I don't mind the Darnold side like you do.
I love this range. I love this range at running back and receiver. I think it's a week where I'm probably going to play a lot of balanced lineups. I think that unless I play an Allen Diggs stack, I really like getting a lot of guys in the mid range this week. I like Olave too. I mean, look at Carolina. Like, the reason we liked Mike Evans last week is they can't defend outside receivers at all. You saw it last week. They just kept going over the top to Evans, and it was there. And J.C. Horn is hurt. They're really banged up in the secondary. They are 30th in the NFL in yards per catch to edge wide receivers in the second half. They're just giving it up all second half. So, and the key with Olave for me is he played full snaps last week. He didn't do a lot, 442, 5 targets, but played full snaps, looked healthy. So I like that. And you mentioned DJ Moore. I love that too. Like, DJ Moore, it's weird. He's a top 20 receiver in 4 of the last 5. The 5th game he had played 69 snaps and had 0 catches. So there's always a floor with Sam Darnold, DJ Moore, but 6 for 117, 10 targets last week. Targets last week, 6, 7, and 10. 30% of his target, he has 30% of team targets with Darnold playing. So, it's just Darnold's looking for him. The Saints have been good against the pass. So the Eagles did do pretty well last week at receiver. Both Smith and AJ Brown were good. So I like DJ Moore. I mean, we talked about we liked DJ Moore at the start of the year. Then it was a top, we're not touching anything in Carolina for a while. And DJ Moore's back. He's been really good the last 5 weeks.
Yep, agreed.
If you were to go sneaky in this range, and I think it's a guy that nobody's going to play, Olave 6,200. You mentioned Judy 6,300, DJ Moore 6,100. Amari Cooper 6,000. Like a lot of guys in this range. Michael Pittman at 6,100 is scary because Sam Ellinger's playing. But when Sam Ellinger played, Pittman's target share was 32% in those games. Pittman's been a disaster this year. He has 2 touchdowns this week 1. He has 1 100-yard game, but he had 13 targets against the same Houston team in week 1, 9 for 121 and a touchdown. He had a touchdown last week on 8 targets. I kind of like Pittman as a 4% rostered kind of guy that maybe leaves week 18 a little bit of a high note. It's been a really rough year in Indy, but if you want to get tricky in a tournament and you want to pivot off more to Olave, who I think will both be popular, I think Pittman's a really interesting tournament play.
Yep, I think that's a great call. And yeah, he'll be the least popular in that range, which makes it a good play.
Yeah. Anybody in the 5,000s, kind of a weird dead range. We mentioned Garrett Wilson, but now Joe Flacco's playing. So maybe he'll probably still get targets, but they're less interesting with Flacco. Anybody else in the 5,000s? I found this a tough range to find guys that I liked him.
Yeah, it's not much, but I do kind of like Gabe Davis just for all the reasons that we've talked about with the Bills. Yeah. I think, Gabe Davis can score 70-yard touchdowns. He can also have games with multiple touchdowns. So I like Gabe Davis.
Is Deontay Johnson going to score a touchdown this season?
That's the other one I was going to mention. If he I don't know is the answer to that question, but I don't mind playing Deontay Johnson this week. At least the Steelers are playing for something. Johnson, he's pretty cheap, so I don't mind taking a chance.
It's wild that he's 5,200. The targets the last 6 weeks, 8, 11, 8, 10, 7, 7. Like, he's getting a ton of work. He just can't. I mean, he does not have a touchdown this season. It's in week 18. That is an impossible stat. Like, I just don't get it. Do you think it's the 5-yard line? They're like, we got to get Deontay a touchdown?
Maybe. I mean,
if they didn't have to win this week, I would kind of like that narrative. Like, holy crap, we can't let him go a whole season without a touchdown. But they have to win too much, so I don't think they can really force it that way. But man, it's 7 more targets last week, 2 for 35. Like, it's been rough. 5,200, I can see it. I don't know. I think I like the guys under him too much to go there.
Yeah. Do you remember just in general? Do you remember the last couple of years, and especially last year? We'd have a bunch of guys in week 18 that are going for bonuses, and you know what they need, a receiving yard bonus, receptions bonus. And these were just great spots to target. And then this year, nothing.
Yeah. There's a couple of guys that need 50 yards for 1,000 yards, but nobody that really needs it. The one we had, I forget who it was. God, I remember maybe it was Eckler that needed a bunch of catches last week to get to the record for receiving catches. He only had 4 catches. He needs 14 this week. He's not gonna get 14, obviously. So you're right. There's not a lot of going for records. Justin Jefferson was another guy that had an outside chance at the receiving record, but after 15 yards has no chance for it anymore. So it's tough. It's tough to find those kind of going for personal goals guys. But under 5,000 at receiver, there are some guys I like down here. I'm guessing you're going to lead off with Rashid Shaheed if I had to guess.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think he's going to end up pretty popular this week. Yeah. I think people will even play him in cash games. So, yeah, I like Shaheed. Really like Cortland Sutton for 48. Yep. We mentioned him. We mentioned, it's nice that he's in the late game as well. Really like Drake London. We've mentioned him a couple times. I think a sneaky one would be Tyler Boyd, especially in Bengals stacks. I don't know who else you got in this range.
Yeah, I like those names too. I like London. I mean, London has 8 plus targets in 4 straight weeks. I like Sutton. I really like Shaheed with you there. 4,200. Kind of same notes we mentioned Olave. Carolina can't stop outside receivers. Targets are not huge, but they're going up, and he can kind of hit a big one at any point. But the guy that's interesting that I want to ask you about, Greg Dortch at 3,800. We talked about him a little bit last week after the big game, but then he had 10 targets again last week. They were horrible. They were 4 for 15. He didn't do anything with David Blau. It's David Blau, right? Is that his first name's David? Yeah.
Yep.
But I don't think DeAndre Hopkins is going to play. Hollywood Brown was a little banged up. He might be the only guy. And as we saw last week, the Niners defense was bad last week. I mean, I don't think that's going to be a consistent thing, but we mentioned last week, we talked about Devontae and some guys. The way to beat the Niners is passing the ball. It's hard to run against them. They do have a little bit, I love Talanoa Hufanga, but maybe he's a better of a run stopper at safety. He's a pass stopper, so you can get behind him. Great game script. They're going to have to throw. They're going to be behind, you would think. So, I mean, You give me someone that had 21 targets the last 2 weeks. I don't know how you don't consider Dortch at 3,800, even though it wasn't very explosive last week.
I think it's a great call. Yeah, and I think people will be wary of going back to him after last game. But yeah, 10 targets, Hopkins out again. Who knows about Brown?
Yeah.
I like it a lot. I will give a 1% play.
That's what we're talking about.
I mean, remember these 1% for a reason here. Chase Claypool, 4,300 with Nathan Peterman, and reason is actually because of Nathan Peterman. I think Fields is not a good quarterback for receivers from a fantasy perspective. Peterson, he at least should be chucking it, and Claypool's talented, and he could get there for 4,300. He's got long touchdowns in him. Again, 1% for a reason. Nathan Peterman's his quarterback, but I don't hate it.
Yeah, I actually looked at that. I like that. I maybe went on read up and he could play enough snaps. He only played 19 snaps last week, so I want to make sure that he's healthy enough. But you're right. I mean, Fields is not a great quarterback for receivers, but Peterman definitely chucks it, usually to the wrong team, but he does tend to chuck it a little bit. So that he had the famous 4 interception first half when he was with the Bills. But yeah, you're talking again. You mentioned it's 1%. He's going to be so much lesser roster than Shaquille in the same price. If you're going to try to win a tournament, that's an interesting spot to try and hit a big one.
So yeah, a couple better plays in that range, but they'll be slightly more popular. I think the Rams receivers, Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell in that game, that means something at least, and especially in a Geno Smith lineups and DK Metcalf lineups.
Do you have a preference between those two guys? Because I'm going to play some Geno lineups. I was trying to figure out who I liked in that combo.
I'm not sure, to be honest. It seems like Van Jefferson has the long touchdown upside. Tutu Atwell, he has, in the right scenario, maybe 10 target upside. So I don't know. It's tough.
I think I go Jefferson. I think the upside is pretty much bigger there. Atwell's been under 20 yards the last 3 weeks. I think I'd have to go Jefferson. I know it's a little more expensive, but I think I go Van just because I think that he can hit that big play.
Yeah.
Tight end this week. We got some guys moving up. George Kittle 6,000, TJ Hawkins 5,700. Wild to see Mark Andrews down to 5,400. Finally had a good week last week. His first game over 65 yards since week 6, believe it or not. Obviously, no Lamar Jackson's hurt him a lot. But what are you doing at tight end this week? I did not love the tight end position this week. I had a hard time finding guys I really want to play. I think I kind of settled on Dalton Schultz at 4,500. But you mentioned Cowboys motivation could be a little lacking. He was really good last week. Juwan Johnson, if Taysom Hill sits, is really interesting at 3,700. I do like that one. But what are you doing at tight end this week? Because I had a little bit of trouble here finding spots I really loved.
Yeah, tight end's pretty gross this week. I agree. Andrews seems okay. Don't mind Goddard with Jalen Hurts back. A little bit cheaper. I'd be okay with Hunter Henry if Jonnu sits again for 3,300. I think in cash games, I'm not sure anyone's going to be super chalky, but I think people will play Freiermuth for 3,800. Yeah. I'm considering Freiermuth. 6 targets, 8 targets, cheap price tag. The Steelers obviously are still playing for something, but yeah, nothing to really love at tight end.
Yeah, I changed my mind. I'd go Freiermuth over Schultz. I think if I were to do it for $700 less. You mentioned the targets, 14 targets the last 2 weeks. I think Freiermuth is a talented guy. He only has 2 touchdowns all year. Has been kind of a disappointment from a season-long angle, but I do like that one at the price. I think that is actually where I'd go. It'd be him or Juwan Johnson probably be my 2 plays.
Yep.
There's not a lot of super good punt options, unfortunately. Usually we've had some guys in here we like in the high 2s or low 3s.
Oh, I got one. Sorry.
Oh, I love it. Let's hear it.
Sorry.
Lay it on me.
I mean, Trey McBride. Right? You saw, I don't know. Are people going to go to him after, huge game last week, 7 catches, 10 targets, and a touchdown. For the same reason people like Dortch. I really felt a bit stupid last week for not considering McBride on a week that there were no tight ends. Anyways, he's a talented rookie. He was good in college. And yeah, just for those same reasons you mentioned about Dortch, I don't mind Trey McBride.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. 3,300, I think that's good. The only other guy down here that I'm kind of is on my list still is Logan Thomas in Washington. He's 3,000, 15 targets the last 2 weeks. Like he's been really involved for Washington lately. Who knows their situation with Sam Howell makes it tough. I'd probably go to McBride instead because I don't know what the heck we're gonna get from Sam Howell. But 6 for 56 last week for Logan Thomas on 7 targets. At least he's really involved in the offense. I think I'd probably go McBride instead, though. You like to see that he had 10 targets from Blau, who did he's not good, but they're gonna be throwing all game, and Blau's playing again, so at least we kind of know there's a connection there.
Yep, agreed. And I get no, I don't think Noah Fant is the worst option either. Just Lockett.
I like the ringing endorsement of not the worst option ever.
No. Well, Goodwin's on the IR. Disley's on the IR. Yeah. Lockett, I think he hurt his leg even to go along with his hand surgery.
I'm not sure Lockett should have played last week.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So he would be the second best option there besides DK Metcalf. So just throwing it out there.
No, that's a fair point. It could be a situation where they're just kind of out of guys in there besides DK, and I think I'm going Freiermuth and McBride. You kind of shifted me on McBride there. I think that's a good call. 3,300.
Yeah, thanks. Me too. Those are my top 2.
Nice. Defense. We got fooled last week. The Niners were weirdly underpriced. I think that the 19th highest defense against the Raiders. And Jared Stidham lit them up. So we were wrong there with the chalk defense. They were 2,900 for I have no idea why they're back to 4,100 this week. I actually think someone typoed that. I think it should have been 3,900. I think it was 2,900, and it kind of screwed us all. They had 3 points, I think. They had an interception in overtime that helped a little bit, but it was a rough chalk defense week. But what are you doing at defense this week off the rough 49ers performance last week?
Yeah, I think.
Did you play Green Bay last week? Because you liked them at 2,300. I hope you played them.
I played Green Bay in the afternoon slate,
okay.
Not in the main slate, unfortunately. Yeah, I was, I was upset about that too after the call.
I was too. I said that and I looked at it. I'm like, I'm just gonna play the Niners. I'm not gonna.
Exactly. That's what I said too.
I should have gone with you.
That's what I said too. Anyways, there are a ton of cheap defenses you can play this week.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go lower than the Falcons. 2,400 at home against mostly Blaine Gabbert. That seems like a good spot to me. The Broncos could be a good spot for 2,500 if the Chargers don't have motivation.
Yeah.
Either the Jets or Miami in that low total game against bad quarterbacks. Texans seem fine. I don't know. Tell me who stands out to you.
I'm looking right now. I honestly don't know who the backup is for the Chargers. Oh, it's Chase Daniel. That's right. Okay. I was trying to think if Herbert doesn't play very much, who they would be facing, and it would be Chase Daniel. I agree with you on that Jets Miami game. I do really like that. I like it more from the Jets standpoint. I think who knows who plays quarterback. The Jets had 4 sacks this week. Miami's allowed multiple sacks in 5 straight weeks, so there's a lot to like there. The one that I think I like the most, though, is outdoors in Chicago. I like the Vikings defense against the Bears. You mentioned Nathan Peterman. You mentioned him liking him for chucking it for Claypool, but I like him for chucking it for the defense, too. Like he throws interceptions. The Vikings have 15 sacks the last 3 weeks. They're not playing well, but they are getting after the quarterback. They obviously didn't play well last week against the Packers, but I think under 3,000. I think the Vikings are going to be a little trying to figure out who they are this week. I think they're going to a little more motivation than maybe think just because how badly they got blown out by the Packers last week. I think they kind of figure. I think they're one of those teams that needs a win, needs a good game going to the playoffs. So I think they're going to try and win this week. 2,900 against Nathan Peterman, I think is just a spot that I'm going to have to click. I really like them this week.
You didn't have to sell me too much.
Yeah,
up against Nathan Peterman seems like a pretty good spot. I agree.
Yeah. I don't see myself going in the 3,000s for a defense this week.
No, me either.
Yeah, I think tournaments and cash. I think I'm going to find enough. We mentioned 4 or 5 plays in the 2,000. I think it makes sense. It's a week to really save on defense.
Definitely.
Cool. Anybody else you want to talk about? Week 18, last week, last DFS show of the season. Any other thoughts that you have for yourself?
I don't think so. I don't know.
We kind of hit all the games, so it's a good thing.
It's been a good season. From a little slightly disappointing. I know I had a really good week 1, and never a better week than that from a GPP perspective. I had a really good season playing cash, probably my best season ever, definitely. So that was nice. It's a little disappointing not to hit a bigger score. But you learn from it always next year, and maybe this season. We still have playoffs.
Yep.
So it's not over yet, but it's been fun. I've learned a lot. I think I've gotten better, and the wins will come.
Yeah, I felt like the second half for me was a lot better. I didn't have that big score, but consistently profitable in the second half. Where the first half was a little rough for me, but the second half has been really good. I feel like I've kind of been 1 or 2 players off that big score. Like last week, I had Evans and Amari Cooper in my main lineup in the morning, and I'm like, oh, here we go. And I had Rodgers, and they had that defensive touchdown early, and I'm just like, they didn't have a point to really go off. And Minnesota fell way behind. I needed Minnesota to stay up in the game, so I really like my spot there. But I've been missing on some quarterbacks here and there, but been pretty good the last second half, so it's been fun. I want to thank you for doing this all year. I learned a lot from you. You're a better DFS player than I am. You're better DFS theory than I am, so I learned a lot from you. So I really appreciate that. I know that you had a big soccer win again this week. I feel like I say that every week, but you're obviously really good in this space, so it's been fun. I appreciate you. Appreciate doing it all year, and it's been fun. I enjoy talking to you about it too. So it's fun that not only is informative for me, but it's fun too.
Yeah, thanks, man. I really enjoy doing this show with you as well. More about football than me. I come on here most weeks without really a clear idea of where I'm going to go. And then after talking with you, it helps a ton. So yeah, it's been a fun year. Can't wait for next year.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully we have a good playoff. At least one of us has a good playoff run in him. I don't know if we both can because they might play in week 1. So yeah, good luck. Good luck to your Packers on Sunday night, and obviously the rest of the way too. But other than that, thanks everybody for listening too. I know it's a lot, and we do a lot of shows. We're doing it every week. RotoWire's got a lot of shows, so I appreciate everybody listening. If you watch us live, if you comment, if you listen on the audio version, whatever it may be, we really appreciate the support. We appreciate. Hopefully, we've helped you out. Hopefully, we found some good plays each week from listening to us kind of break it down and kind of go through the slate. So I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank No House Advantage for their sponsorship of the podcast all year. Also, we really appreciate that too. Other than that, I hope everybody has a really good week 18. I hope everybody has a good playoff schedule. Also, if your team's in the playoffs, hope they win. If you're playing DFS in the playoffs, hope that works out well. I will be back with you on the Fantasy Baseball podcast, probably in late February, early March. Ryan will be. What's your soccer schedule looking like? Are you guys starting here in 10 minutes, or there's no soccer this week?
No soccer today, but there'll be multiple soccer podcasts every week for the foreseeable future. So yeah, that's where I'll be.
And if you are remotely interested in soccer, I can't recommend listening to Ryan enough. Like I mentioned, he won another big tournament this week and entry into the King of the Pitch, the big final. They actually won last year. So if you want some good soccer info, go to Ryan. He's really good in that sport. So if you do like soccer, I highly recommend listening to that podcast. Other than that, thanks everybody for listening all year. We hope everybody's a good week 18, and we'll be back at you hopefully in 20. I guess it's still 2023, but the 2023 football season. Hope everybody has a good one. Take care. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks.